Hello and welcome to my new podcast called Monstrous. I'll start off by saying, first of all, that my name is Alison and that I am by no means a seasoned reporter. I am absolutely an amateur, and I would say I am likely to make all sorts of technical mistakes along the way. However, I do like a baptism of fire, and this will certainly be that. So the purpose of my podcast is going to be analysing and deconstructing a new podcast called Hoaxed that has been put out by Tortoise Media and is all about the Hampstead Heath child sex abuse situation that took place in 2014. Now, this is an area that I'm very much a rookie in. I'll give you a little bit of background to how I've come upon this information. So during the vaccination mandates in Australia, I was unable to continue working as an English teacher because I just didn't feel comfortable with this whole move to force people to take what was to me kind of a vaccination that didn't have sufficient longitudinal data to be forcing it on people and saying that they would lose their entitlements or their jobs or their rights if they didn't take it. So I found myself with a lot of time on my hands, about 6 months, in fact, where I started looking into a whole bunch of things that some of my close friends and family had been telling me about for about 5 years. Things that sounded outrageous and horrifying and unbelievable, really. So things such as that there were 28 VIP alleged paedophiles whose names had been brought up in the Royal Commission, and that there was this 90-year suppression order in Australia because to let the public know of these 28 VIP alleged paedophiles that included, elite political, judicial personalities, entertainment personalities as well. That would be so destabilising for the nation that it was in our best interest that we didn't know. So I started researching this and finding out for myself that actually this stuff is true. Things like rape allegations against prime ministers. So I read works like, that you can all find online yourselves, Eyes Wide Shut by Fiona Barnett. And, going down a number of what we call rabbit holes, what other people would say are conspiracy theories. And I was astounded, absolutely astounded to find out that so much of this information is supported by evidence. That kind of coincided too with total disillusionment that we all have felt during this COVID period where the mainstream media cannot be trusted. I have been a fervent defender of the ABC for all my life, believing very much that the fourth estate, the media, the press, having a robust press is very important to a democracy, that it's the fourth estate, that it holds up and keeps the government and those in power in check. So I've always believed that the ABC should be funded, that it's a necessity and so forth. However, in this period, I've realised that even the ABC and SBS, they're really just as bad as 7, 9 and 10 in terms of their holding up of the status quo and censoring out important information that the public should be aware of. A watershed moment for me was watching Q&A one night. Q&A is a very popular, I'll say. It's not really popular, it's a geeky show. But it's popular in that it has been well regarded over the years, and it's a panel program. And you usually get a whole bunch of different people on there it's changed over the years. It was much more ad hoc and ad lib back in the day, and it was exciting because people would ask questions that were provocative and difficult to answer. But over the years, it's become much more vetted, much more staged. But I was watching that sometime at the beginning of the pandemic, in inverted commas, and I call it a pandemic in inverted commas because most of us know that the definition of the word pandemic was changed by the WHO so that it fit what was being presented in terms of COVID. Anyhow, I was watching this program and there was a very articulate and intelligent woman by the name of Gigi Foster. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And she is an economist at the University of New South Wales. Now, she was saying to the panel that she felt that rash measures to shut everything down, to get people working from home, to stop people being able to go to cafes and restaurants and the cinema and so forth, would amount to a tanking of the economy. And this is exactly what I had been saying, much to the irritation of my friends and colleagues, some of whom are no longer friends, because I could just see this is outrageous that they're considering doing this economic damage to all these nations across the globe, basically. And I felt she was absolutely right. Of course, this is in terms of the mental health cost of people losing their jobs, of people being forced to stay at home, the loneliness, the lack of connection, the anxiety, all of this was very obvious, and she was out there speaking about it in terms of the economics. And immediately she was positioned in, I was outraged when I was watching this. I couldn't believe the way all the panelists and the host jumped on her and really decried her, made her look out to be like a granny killer, like somebody who just doesn't care about the elderly people. And that was that moment where I was just like, okay, I'm not watching any of this mainstream junk anymore. I'm not going to be fed this rubbish. I need to find more appropriate sources. Anyhow, in that journey, we have luckily come across many, many wonderful people who are able to more objectively investigate these matters. Some of them are people like the Aussie Cossack, Ricardo Bosi, Real Rukshar, Rebel News, Avi Yemeni, Dale H. Dale H is a marvellous person that looks into particularly satanic ritual abuse. There's a whole host of them, but they were new to me. So I've only been looking at this in detail during this year. So if there are things that I get wrong or that I'm not aware of, please, I'd be so happy to hear from anybody who knows more, and happy to retract or correct anything that I say that is wrong. So yeah, one of the things that I have come across in this time, which was given to me by a freedom fighting friend, was this link. I didn't know what it was, just opened it, and it was basically a blonde young boy in a interrogation room, I suppose, or like a police room of some sort. It wasn't as cold and harsh as the others look usually when adults are being investigated, but the little boy opened with a line, something akin to, at my school, all the teachers are best friends. And I thought, oh my God, where is this going to go? Now, I think it's fair to say that I'm a pretty seasoned true crime fan. I have watched hours upon hours, followed for far too long, probably spent much of my time on forums like Web Sleuths and watching true crime. I don't know, it's been something that I've been interested in for a very, very long time, ever since I read my first Anne Rule book when I was about 19 years of age. I remember getting into that, Jeffrey Dahmer, and just being hooked from that point on. The human psychology, also looking out for red flags so that I can avoid scary situations, is also part of the reason I love doing that. I followed a number of cases daily, such as the Casey Anthony case many years ago, the Australian case with William Tyrrell. I followed that very closely, as well as the one with the Baden-Powell, Alison, the Australian woman that was murdered by her real estate agent husband in Queensland. And you get to grips with these interrogations and the way the police work when you watch this stuff. So yeah, when I saw this little boy being interviewed, I felt sick in the stomach, and I thought, oh my God, this is gonna go somewhere really awful. I persisted to watch, and it went for a good while, an hour, over an hour, 2 hours probably. And I was horrified. I was really horrified. So the little boy recounts that his father is the head of a Satanic ritualistic cult that operates out of his school. These are all allegations, of course. And the school is called the Christchurch School in Hampstead. You can look up their website now. It's quite an intriguing sort of place. It's very affluent. Most people that that live there are connected professionals. They are what people refer to as socially powerful. And my understanding is it's got that sort of villagey feel, upper middle class vibe to it. And this school has a church and is a primary school. So this little boy, I won't use his name, went on to describe with amazing clarity and specificity regarding these horrible things that have happened that he alleged, let's say, happened to him and his sister and about 20 other special children at the school. And it involved horrific things such as killing and eating babies. It involved group sex, children being subjected to dildos, being sodomized with dildos. And some of this abuse, according to the little boy, happened at places like the local pool and McDonald's and Starbucks. Sounds wild, it sounds crazy, but those of you who are aware of the kinds of things that these satanic people do will not be surprised that they often do things that are so outrageous that it's almost like a fail-proof way of ensuring that the secret is not divested or not believed by other people because it sounds so way out there. They also spoke about the local shoe repairer making shoes out of the skin of the babies, and that the people were wearing these shoes. Really, really disturbing stuff. And then, of course, there is the little girl, his sister, who also recounts in amazing detail, the kind of detail that, in my view, is credible and corroborates her brother's experiences or allegations. And she talks about how there are sweets in the back of the class. There's a little cupboard in the back of the classroom, and that's where the sweets are kept for those children who, will be subjected to sex by these adults. It also includes not just the teachers that they do name the teachers. It also, according to the children, according to their original allegations, included social workers and the school nurse, child social services, that some of these children, the babies, are brought by social services because their parents can't look after them. If you know any of the details of horrible cases in Australia of children who are fostered and abused and passed around, these paedophile rings, this stuff really does exist. This stuff really does happen. So I watched this, and then at some point in this video, the children recant, and they turn around and say, no, that actually none of that did happen. I believe that was about a week later. But when I was watching the video, it seemed to be as though it was in the same sitting with this police officer, but it in fact wasn't. Anyhow, this is the main case that my podcast is going to attempt to unpack and deconstruct, but it's going to be focused on the way this Alexei Monstrous, the host of Hoaxed, positions the information that he has. Because when I saw about 10 days ago that this podcast had been released, Hoaxed, you can find it on Apple Podcasts or any other iHeartRadio, any other podcasting platform. Or you can be stupid and pay for it at Tortoise Media. But I was really excited. Many of us were like, wow, okay, this looks good. Maybe somebody's going to bring to light the events that happened, because it surely needs it. Part of the context of this case is that the children turned around and said, no, none of this really happened. And the mother of the children, Ella Gariva, and her then boyfriend, Abraham Christie, had in fact told the children to make this story up in order to win a custody case. A judge came out, quite wrongly I would say, and said that these accusations of the children's were baseless, and they then put the children back in the care of the father who the children had initially accused of being a satanic leader of a cult. Now, Ricky Dearman, that's his name, very, very intriguing and unusual individual. I've got to do a bit more digging on him, because all I've found so far is that he's an actor and hasn't acted in many things. But that was the father, the children's father. And so the kids stayed with him. And my gut feeling is that this Hoaxed podcast has been put out there as a preemptive strike to ensure that the children, who are now 17 and 18, coming up to their 17th and 18th birthday, they're going to be able to speak as adults very soon. And people who are involved in this case are very, very much aware of that. And so I think this Hoax podcast is in itself a hoax. I think it is a ruse. I don't believe it's real. I don't believe it's a real investigation. And this is very meta. My podcast, Monstrous, is a podcast about the Hoaxed podcast. So let's get into it.